Come on.
Individuals that are here, but also welcome to all the people who are going to be seeing the recording of this over the next week or two, because you are just as important as people who are here right now. Just nothing particularly newsworthy this month. We've been fairly quiet in our post conference period, but the great news is that meetings are still continuing with members of Parliament, and we're steadily making progress on letting them know their options as decision makers. Carbon fee and dividend is still being talked about everywhere, and also very importantly, the Parliamentary Friends of Climate Action has had its first meeting in Canberra and is due to have another one fairly shortly. So lots of good things are happening, and the government is continuing to hear from us. So that's really good. I'm delighted that Ken's joining us today, because I've been reading up on his ideas for Newcastle and Tonga, and they both look really interesting. And so I'm happy for us to continue straight to his talk, if that's okay with you, Tom.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rod.
My pleasure.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to everyone Ken Davey. He's a consultant on biofuels and anaerobic digestion systems, and he's got a wide experience in this. He's doing some major projects in Newcastle and, sorry, Suva, is it? I'm terrible remembering. It's a Pacific island. Anyway, Tonga, that's the one, sorry. Going from my memory is a terrible thing to do. And I really want to welcome Ken along. Thank you very much for making this time available to us and putting together a presentation. Really looking forward to your talk on biogas and the rest. So if everybody would like to applause and welcome Ken, and we'll over to you.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the introduction. Just a little bit about myself, how I come to get involved in biogas. I have a background in water and wastewater management, and back in 2008, basically by accident, I became involved or became interested in anaerobic digestion and biogas, and I found it absolutely fascinating. So I jumped on an aeroplane and I went to Germany. I went and saw a biogas company, and I said I want a job, and they gave me a job. So I've been involved in in and around the German biogas sector since late 2008. Biogas is not well understood in this country, to our great detriment. So I'm hoping that we can push it forward as a really major, not just an energy platform, but to mitigate against climate change, and to also, it also has so much to offer our regional and farming communities. Okay, now let me go to where we go share. Let me go to that one. Now, how do I get rid of that? Slideshow from the beginning. Okay, jumped up. Okay, so today's topic is the unique and enabling role of anaerobic digestion and biogas in the circular economy. How can I get rid of all you guys down the side here? Because you're blocking my notes. Let me go. Here we go. I've got it. Okay, cool. All right. So let's have a look at how biogas is produced. Biogas is produced via the natural biological process called anaerobic digestion. The conditions for anaerobic digestion arise in the absence of oxygen and light. AD biologically transforms organic material into two products, biogas and digestate. AD has evolved over billions of years into biological perfection. Let's have a look at a biogas plant as the point of convergence between photosynthesis and anaerobic digestion. Substrates is the term we use to describe the organic material being fed into a biogas plant. And this is just a very small selection of those substrates. The common origin of all those substrates is photosynthesis. They all came into existence at some point through photosynthesis. The digesters are the main structural elements of a biogas plant. In this photo, the digesters are the large tanks. The digesters are where the process of anaerobic digestion occurs. Therefore, the digesters of a biogas plant are the point of convergence between the products of photosynthesis and anaerobic digestion. Digesters come in many shapes, sizes, and functionalities, but they are always this point of convergence. The material transformation that ensues from this point of convergence delivers total resource recovery, value adding, and zero waste. All we humans do is wrap layers of technology and systems around this point of convergence to leverage off what billions of years of evolution naturally delivers. A core function of AD is biological carbon conversion. This is where solid carbon is converted into gaseous carbon, into biogas. This is the composition of a typical biogas. The two main constituent gases are methane and carbon dioxide. Whatever elements of the substrates that are not converted into biogas are captured in the digestate. All the nutrients from the substrates are captured in the digestate, and these nutrients come pre-packaged within a synthesis of residual carbon and a huge soil-building microbiological resource. The digestate is fully recyclable back into agriculture. If the full potentials of AD and biogas are captured within an optimized circular economy system, the strategic use of the digestate enables more food and more energy to be sustainably produced from the same area of land. And this is done whilst simultaneously and continually building soil carbon and increasing soil fertility. The biogas itself is just converted solar energy. So let's have a look at how we can use biogas. Biogas can be used after basic conditioning where the water and some trace gases are removed. The conditioned biogas can be used to fuel combined heat and power systems, also known as CHPs. This is a biogas-fueled CHP. In this configuration, the CHP simultaneously co-produces electricity and heat at around 85 to 90% efficiencies. In this configuration, the CHP simultaneously co-produces electricity, heat, and cold at over 90% efficiencies. Now let's have a look at biomethane. Biomethane is conditioned biogas with the CO2 removed. Both the renewable methane and the green carbon dioxide can be captured as separate gas streams because both have infinite roles to play within a circular economy system. Biomethane, also known as renewable natural gas or RNG, is completely compatible and fully interchangeable with natural gas. In Europe, the focus of AD and biogas is shifting more towards biomethane. In Europe, biomethane production increased over 2,000% in the 5 years to 2016. In the next 6 slides, we'll look at some major biomethane initiatives. Italy has set a target to inject 288 petajoules of biomethane into its gas grids by 2030. This biomethane will produce from both agricultural and urban source substrates. Denmark has plans to meet 100% of its methane demands from biomethane by 2035. Denmark will have no inter-country gas transmission connections. Denmark will also soon have the first 1 million tonne per year biogas plant. That is 1 million tonnes a year of substrates being fed into a single biogas plant. A consortium of 7 European gas transport companies, plus the European Biogas Association and the Italian Biogas Association, commissioned a report called Gas for Climate. The report identified 122 billion cubic metres of renewable gas could be developed by 2050, with half of that being biomethane from anaerobic digestion. That is 2,268 petajoules per year of biomethane by 2050. This is another exciting biomethane initiative called BioLNG Euronet. 3 of the main players in this initiative are Shell, Scania and Iveco. The Trans-European Transport Network runs through the countries identified in green. This transport network will have bio-LNG filling stations installed approximately every 400 kilometres. Through financial incentives, Scania and Iveco will support the uptake of 2,500 heavy-duty LNG trucks, and ultimately this system will be rolled out across Europe. Let's have a look at the global potentials of AD and biogas. The following information comes from a recent global study undertaken by the World Biogas Association. The potential to generate energy from currently available global substrates is 10,100 to 14,000 terawatt hours. This amount of energy can support 6 to 9% of the world's primary energy consumption, or 23 to 32% of the world's coal-based energy. AD and biogas have the potential to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by between 10 to 13%. When AD and biogas are used strategically to enable circular economy systems to exist, the global deliverables increase exponentially. Let's have a look at some examples of circular economy systems that are enabled by AD and biogas. This is a vertically integrated broiler cluster enabled by AD and biogas. The system simultaneously produces energy, food, feed and organic fertilizer as system co-products. The efficiency of this system is orders of magnitude greater than any existing broiler cluster. This system produces 4 to 6 times more energy than it consumes, and this includes transport energy. These same principles can be applied to many livestock-based systems. The perennially struggling Australian dairy industry could be reinvented through the widespread adoption of AD and biogas-enabled circular economy principles. Remember, when we upgrade biogas to biomethane, we can capture the green carbon dioxide. And both the green carbon dioxide and the methane have infinite roles to play in circular economy systems. Those are the hands and arms of Dr. Pia Winberg. Pia has developed a remarkable land-based seaweed production and processing system. What you see bubbling up out of the pond is carbon dioxide. Quite remarkably, this system can take 1,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide and convert it into 850 kilograms of high-value seaweed dry matter. And this system can produce 100 tonnes of dry matter per hectare per year. The other main input into this system is liquid nutrient. This liquid nutrient can come from the liquid fraction of the digestate. The energy to dry and process the seaweed into a wide range of high-value products can come from the biogas, can come from a biogas-fueled CHP. The synergies between AD, biogas and PS seaweed system are simply compelling. We are hoping to develop such a system in the Newcastle Hunter area of New South Wales. This system will be based predominantly on urban source substrates. If this project proceeds, it's likely to be the first biogas plant in Australia that injects biomethane into the gas grid. Drought is a big issue in Australia right now and will become a bigger issue into the future. So let's see how AD and biogas can build drought resilience into agriculture and regional communities at an industrial scale. The majority of the 18,000 commercial biogas plants in Europe are agriculturally aligned. In Europe, biogas is largely an agricultural-based energy and total resource recovery platform. The production of food, feed, fibre and energy are entrenched elements of European agriculture. AD is a continual process where products are produced 24/7, 365 days a year. This provides the farmers and the regional communities connected to biogas plants with a continuous source of income. Let's see there how this continuous source of income can be applied to alleviate the financial stress of drought. These are various crop residues left over after harvesting. Not all of this residue resource can be harvested, but much of it can, leaving just enough to keep the soil bound and protected against soil erosion. Excess residues left behind in the paddock contribute little to soil carbon and nutrient retention because much of this benefit is lost under the conditions of uncontrolled aerobic degradation. In a good year, well over 20 million tonnes of crop residues would be available for collection and processing across Australia. There are many commercial systems dedicated to the harvesting and baling of these crop residues. These residues can be stored as square bales, or in round bales, or in silage clamps for higher moisture, for residues with higher moisture content. All of these systems are simply organic batteries. When these organic batteries are formed and stored under optimized conditions, they can store energy for years, and there's not 1 ounce of lithium or any other non-renewable resource involved. These crop residues can be used to form very large regional scale energy banks in support of industrial scale, biogas plant enabled biorefineries. This is an example of a regional industrial scale biogas plant. Deposits are made into the energy bank in good years, and the biogas plant makes daily withdrawals from the energy bank in support of its 24/7 operation. The size of the energy bank is determined through a comprehensive risk mitigation process. So let's run through the products that can be produced via our biogas plant enabled biorefinery. And this is by no means an exhaustive product list. Up the top, we have baseload renewable electricity plus grid support services. The difference between biogas-based electricity, biogas generated electricity, and wind and solar is that it is baseload. And it is also able to provide grid support services such as voltage regulation and frequency control. If you've got a lot of biogas-based generation in a region, that region can then go on to support more wind and more solar, because the biogas is able to provide the grid support services to enable that to happen. So our biogas our industrial scale biogas plant can also produce all forms of process energy: steam, hot water, cooling, chilling, and freezing and drying energy. Transport fuel in the form of bio-CNG and bio-LNG, green carbon dioxide and green chemicals for industry, and organic fertilisers and soil conditioners via the digestate. So they're the base products that can come out of our industrial scale biogas plant. Now let's have a look at the commercial drivers. This barrel of unrefined crude oil equals 159 litres and carries approximately 1,700 kilowatt hours of energy. At US $60 a barrel, this crude oil feedstock is feeding into its refinery at US 3.529 cents a kilowatt hour. One tonne of crop residues can yield approximately 400 cubic metres of biogas with 53% CH4, 53% methane. This is equivalent to 2,120 kilowatt hours of energy as methane. On top of that, we have our green carbon dioxide and our digestate. If we pay US $25 a tonne for these crop residues as substrates, we are paying US 1.179 cents a kilowatt hour, or US $20 per barrel of oil equivalent. On the left, we have crude oil feeding into an offshore oil refinery that we have no control over for US $60 a barrel. On the right, we have local biomass feeding into a fully sustainable, 100% local industrial scale biorefinery that we have total control over for US $20 per barrel of oil equivalent. This is a graph of crude oil prices over the last 40 years. The two straight lines down the bottom are set at $20 and $15. And as you can see, there has been very little time over the last 40 years where crude oil prices have been below those lines. Importantly, because our industrial scale biogas plant exists, every kilogram of waste and opportunity-based substrate from within the region will be directed to the biogas plant for co-digestion. An example of an opportunity-based substrate is a commercial crop that has been storm damaged and is no longer fit for purpose. Another example is that in good years, it's not just crops that grow well. There's also huge quantities of landscape-based biomass. Because the biogas plant exists, it's now economically viable to harvest this landscape-based biomass and direct it to the biogas plant. It's important to remember that via the digestate, we will be transferring all of the nutrients and some of the organic carbon from this landscape management biomass into our agricultural soils. When the region starts to apply the deliverables of this biorefinery to value add to the local agricultural production, more waste streams will become available. Now let's have a look at how digestate is handled at this industrial scale. Tankers are used to transport the pumpable digestate to the farms. The digestate is transferred to a holding tank and a pumping unit and is sent out through a long, flexible umbilical pipeline. On the other end of that umbilical pipeline is a tractor equipped with a digestate injection system. This strip till system is the best of the digestate injection systems, and it opens a small trench, injects the digestate into the root zone of the soil, then forms, closes, compacts a protective soil mound over the injected area. Excuse me. The incorporation of other nutrients, along with agricultural grade biochar, within the injected digestate is fully achievable and desirable. When compared to leaving the unharvested residues in the paddock, this system delivers substantially superior outcomes. Additionally, through this continual digestate application, we have created a platform for the participation in carbon markets at a regional level. The digestate can also be applied to emerging crops via this dribble bar system. So, is AD and biogas worth the effort? Let's have a look at the German biogas sector for some guidance. The development of the German biogas sector began in earnest in the year 2000 via the legislated Renewable Energy Sources Act. The Renewable Energy Sources Act is, in my view, the most inspired piece of public policy in generations. What that piece of inspired public policy has unleashed is simply unimaginable. A complete socio-economic transformation. This is a statistical snapshot of the German biogas sector in 2017, and it's worth a closer look. So what this snapshot is telling us is that in Germany there was about 9,300 odd biogas plants in Germany in 2017. The installed electric capacity in megawatts was 4,550 megawatts, remembering that that is base load. The gross electricity production in terawatt hours per year is 32.98. And some of you may recognise that figure because that just happens to be 32 or 33 terawatt hours, just happens to be our 2020 renewable energy target. So if we drop the German biogas sector into Australia, it would cover our entire 2020 renewable energy target on its own. Households supplied with biogas-based electricity in millions is 9.4 million households. CO2 reduction by biogas in million tonnes, 19.9 million tonnes of CO2 reduction. But this is the thing that I want to focus in on, the turnover and the job creation. The turnover of the German biogas sector is 9.3 billion euros a year. And the jobs that are supported by the German biogas sector is 47,000 jobs. Now let me just jump back into this slide. When they first started collecting this data way back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the full connections between AD and biogas and the agricultural-based circular economies weren't really well understood. So when they started collecting the data, that data did not relate to all of the circular economy systems or circular economy jobs that are enabled by AD and biogas. So this 9.3 billion and 47,000 jobs, in fact, is only a part of what AD and biogas delivers to the German economy. And remembering that most of this occurs in rural and regional Germany because this is predominantly a rural and regional energy platform or energy and total resource recovery platform. So how would that play out in Australia? New South Wales on its own could have a biogas sector half the size of the German biogas sector because it's not to do with the size of the population, it's to do with the amount of biomass that you can grow and the size of your agricultural areas. This is a location of the German biogas plants back in 2014. And this graph comes from a body of work initiated by the government of Finland. It was a whole of government exercise with expansive and extensive public engagement. This investigation looked at the socio-economic deliverables that would ensue from shifting Finland onto a bio-based circular economy platform. As captured by the trajectory of the green line, transitioning Finland onto a bio-based circular economy development platform will enable a level of socio-economic prosperity that has never been experienced before in the history of Finland. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken. It's a brilliant presentation. A lot of technical stuff there, but it's all put together. It's a fantastic story. Now, I'll bet there's a few questions out there. Who has a question? Would you like to turn your slides off, please, Ken, and we can see each other?
Okay, yep. Where do we go for that? In slideshow. Okay, have I done it there or not?
That's good. Yes, thank you. Wrong button.
Okay.
Yes, Peter Todd.
Obviously, the German focuses on kind of rural products. Is kind of forestry products also relevant for biodigester?
No, not really. The best material for digestion is stuff that you would characterize as soft green material. If it has a high lignin content, then generally it's not good for digestion. There are some exceptions to that rule, but generally speaking, if you put a kilogram of lignin into the front end of the biogas plant, you'll get a kilo of lignin out the back end. So it's material that can be described as soft green material. But what I've done now, I've only spoken about agricultural-based residues. You've also got, of course, all of your urban-based substrates. You know, most of all the food waste and a lot of the green waste that we collect in our urban environments can go into biogas plants. And it is routinely done all over the world. So because we're the most urbanized country in the world, and we have quite large cities, we've got huge quantities of digestible biomass in our urban environments.
Thanks, Ken. Other questions? Any questions here, Golden?
I thought I saw there's something in Gardening Australia or Landline or somebody in Victoria, I think it was.
You must have been moving.
In blueberry greenhouse. Is it so in Australia it's starting to happen?
I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat that. I didn't get that question, sorry.
I thought I had seen a program on Gardening Australia, or one of those rural programs that there was a plant in Victoria producing biogas and using CO2 into blueberry production as well. They were putting into greenhouses. Is that so? It is happening in Australia?
Yes. You don't know that. You're exactly right. So that the system that you saw putting the CO2 into Pia's seaweed system, that can just as easily put that CO2 into a glass house.
What's going on?
So in Holland, there's probably a couple of thousand of glass houses that have methane-fueled CHPs, with the electricity going into the grid, with the heat going into the glass house, but also the CO2 is being captured and being put into the glass house. And they can increase their crop production by 30 or 40%, depending on the concentration of CO2 that they run in the glass house.
So what's the smallest size you have? Is that something that you scale to realistic size? Can you put your grass clippings in it, for example?
Yeah, look, grass. I'm not really hearing these questions very clearly, but grass clippings, anything that can be characterised as soft green material. That's really the key to good biogas production, is to have something that can be characterised as soft green material. But then, of course, you've got all your liquid food waste. You've got solid food waste. You have liquid food processing waste, solid food processing waste from fish, from all livestock waste, processing waste. They're all digestible material. But in terms of a biomass, the biomass has to be has to be what you would consider to be soft green material. They are more and more starting to use lignocellulosic material, and that's why we can now look at using straw at an industrial scale. It takes a different type of biogas plant, or at least different processes leading up to the digestion of that material. And so this is what they're concentrating on in Europe. They're moving away from the use of energy crops and starting to use crop residues and straws and other material, and they're pre-treating that material before it goes into the digesters, so that they can win more biogas from the digestion of that material.
Thanks, Ken. Now, I know Rowan has his hand up and wants to ask.
Yeah, and Neville's got a question, Tom.
When you do the kind of a comparison, you're basically talking about the cost of oil against the cost of the raw materials for the biogas. And I would like to know about the capital cost comparison, although it's probably not realistic. And our refinery is like a big power station, whereas biogas is like distributed energy. But can you compare capital costs in any way?
Yeah, the biogas plants are, the capex of biogas plant is very size dependent. So, for instance, there's a lot of farms in Europe will have a small biogas plant, maybe 75 kilowatt, right? Now they'll be paying about $9,500, $10,000, 10,000 euro per kilowatt electrical install. But if you go up to a 1 megawatt biogas plant, then the cost per unit of energy comes down by 2/3. If you go up to an industrial scale biogas plant, such as the one that I showed in the presentation, the cost will drop significantly again. So the bigger the biogas plant, the lower the cost of producing the energy. It's really that simple. And also, the bigger the biogas plant, generally speaking, you are able to extract more product from that biogas plant under commercially viable conditions. So scale is very, very important. I suspect that if Germany had their time again, they probably wouldn't have 10,000 biogas plants scattered all over Germany. They would probably have fewer biogas plants, but they would be bigger. So we have an opportunity to learn from that and look at what countries like Denmark are doing, putting in these very large regional scale biogas plants. That way you can pull in very attractive capital financing, probably get government assistance for the capital financing of these plants, and therefore reduce your capex costs, and also which will deliver better outcomes. But the other thing is that for our circumstances in rural communities, we have the capacity. You say in the northwest of New South Wales, in the grain growing areas, you could put a peg in the ground and go and at 100 or 50 kilometre radius around that peg in the ground, and there'd be hundreds of thousands of tonnes of material that could be captured post-harvesting to be fed into a biogas plant. So I see it as being a wonderful opportunity. Wherever you see biogas in regional areas at scale, the regional areas from the farmer down right through to the towns and the citizens in those towns, they all benefit.
Okay.
Yes, Peter. Yeah, have a go.
Yeah. So, how easy is it to get government money and government support for setting up new bioplants?
Well, I think if this was packaged up properly, particularly now that we're talking about drought, and again, I'll just concentrate on the agricultural sector, even though the urban sourced organics is probably the lowest hanging fruit, because a biogas plant in an urban environment would be paid to process that material, so it wouldn't be a gate fee or a processing fee would be part of the income stream of a biogas plant located or based on urban source substrates. But just sticking with the agricultural theme, if you have a look at every time we have a drought and it's prolonged, the state government opens its checkbook and the federal government opens its checkbook, and they pump more debt into these communities, and largely, I mean, they were announced very up to $1 million on an upfront interest fee, and you pay the loan off, you know, when the next drought starts. It's just crazy stuff. And this happens time and time and time again. So this is a strategy to invest in a piece of regional infrastructure, an industrial scale piece of regional infrastructure that will produce income 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, irrespective of drought conditions. So that everyone connected to that biogas plant will have an income stream. So it will to some extent put a lot of resilience into these rural and regional communities. And I think it has, I am absolutely convinced that it is a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful strategy that would really strengthen our agricultural sector and strengthen our regional communities as well. So it should be funded. These things should be funded.
Yeah, we've got one question just here a second, and then Rowan, okay?
Yeah, I'm a small farmer here. We're out in, we've got what they call a green drought here. My hay has been shipped in from Victoria and South Australia. I'm struggling to understand how we're talking about sustainability, particularly a baseload item. It seems to me that the solution is a good solution, but it's no different to solar or wind. There are other variables, and that's the available resource to actually go through the process. In a drought, it's just not there. Or you've got to import it from Western Australia to South Australia to Victoria, and the costs are now much higher. Can you help me understand that, please?
Yeah, look, no, you wouldn't import it. That's the whole idea of creating. In the good years, you have a lot of material available that you can, a lot of material post-harvest that can be captured and stored in energy banks. And that material can last for years. So the idea of this is to use crop residues in the very good, is to harvest these crop residues in the very good years and the okay years and build up your energy banks. So you would have to go through a risk mitigation process where you would size your energy bank on how on the size of the biogas plant and how much substrate you would need over the course of a year or 2 years in order to operate that biogas plant. So it's a risk mitigation strategy, but you can have irregular, intermittent inputs into your energy bank, but daily withdrawals. They do this in Europe all of the time. They don't do it at the scale that I'm talking about because they don't have to. But it is perfectly manageable. But it's all about creating the energy bank, and they have to be prepared that when you have a good season, you get stuck in and you harvest this crop residues. You also harvest all the landscape management material that is also growing at the same time that the crops are growing, and all of this is deposited into your energy bank. And you size your energy bank to enable that biogas plant to have continual production.
Thanks, Ken. Now we have a question from Rowan, and perhaps one more question after that. Who else would have their hand up? Was there somebody in Denmark? Yes. Well, okay, first and then Denmark.
Okay, Ken, there's people making biogas at any scale from sewerage?
Not so much from sewerage itself as an input, but from usually what happens is that you will have a normal sewage treatment plant, which is aerobically based or mainly aerobically based, and it produces a sludge. And that sludge can be a input material for a biogas plant. The other thing that the other thing that's done in some countries is that to polish effluent, they put the effluent through constructed wetlands, and they harvest the biomass from the constructed wetlands, and that can become an input material for the biogas plant. So you're capturing all of your nutrient, and ultimately that's getting returned back to your agricultural soils. So anaerobic digestion has a lot of different roles to play in sewage, in dealing with sewage, but generally it's not, you're not going to put a sewage line or sewage, put sewage directly into a biogas plant.
Thanks, Ken. And Denmark.
Oh, yes, thanks, Ken. My name is Rod. My question is about contaminants. How easy is it to deal with contaminants, particularly from an urban feedstock?
Yeah, well, you do have to be careful. I mean, there's certainly contamination challenges, but if you're selective in what you're processing, then those can be well managed. Food waste and garden waste and those sorts of substrates generally don't come with any contaminants. They're pretty clean materials. Some food processing can be slightly contaminated, but not very often. Some sludges from sewage treatment plants can have contaminants, particularly if that sewage treatment plant is serving an industrial area. But generally speaking, out of say curbside collected material and from the commercial food sector, from all types of food waste, they're pretty clean material. So not a lot of contamination comes out of that. In terms of public health, and these materials need to be pasteurised before they are digested, so that you are removing any chance of pathogens being passed through the system. But the anaerobic digestion system itself that process itself greatly reduces pathogens, but we can add other processes to the anaerobic digestion system, either pre or post digestion, to apply more higher levels of public health outcomes to the digestate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Neville, one more for you. Okay.
The local council is going to have a biogas plant at the landfill, and it's surrounded by farming land. Would it make sense for the farmers to send stuff to the landfill plant and make it better?
No, it doesn't make sense, because you're not doing total resource recovery. You are capturing a portion of the energy, but that's all you're capturing. You're losing all of your nutrient, you're losing all of your residual carbon, you're losing all of your microbiological resources. Just one more, just going back to that contamination question, it's probably worthwhile answering this way. In Europe now, they're probably up to about 200 million tonnes of digestate that's returned to agriculture each year. So you can imagine that every type of challenge that has been experienced in that, and they have very little problems with returning digestate to agricultural soils.
Well, thank you very much, Ken. I've got several questions I'd like to ask, but I think we've run out of time. I guess the main concern for us all is what's standing in the way. This is just a magic technology. Why haven't we already got it happening everywhere? What's stopping us? Yeah.
Well, we've never really created a proper. There's a lot of answers. I could probably talk for a day about this stuff, but generally speaking, Australians don't get bioenergy, and we particularly don't get biogas. It's been a mystery to me why it hasn't been looked at. Politically, if you put 100 nationals in a room, you would get 100 of them wouldn't know anything about biogas. So, you know, the very political party that should be promoting this in regional, rural areas haven't got a clue about it. And from my experience, they're not really interested. So there's political challenges, the fact that we don't understand biogas, and we don't understand bioenergy. They're the main, and we've never created a platform. We've never created something like the Renewable Energy Sources Act to create that certainty, create that platform of certainty to drive all of this. So they are the main issues. But I suspect that you've only got to get one large biogas plant up, and everybody would see just how wonderful they are, particularly in these rural regional areas. So my focus, having accumulated too many scars on my forehead from bumping my head against the Australian brick wall, in recent years I've sort of gone into the Pacific Islands, and I'm starting on developing biogas plants in the Pacific Islands. Because of this connection between anaerobic digestion and photosynthesis, there's a natural connection there. So anywhere where you've got more photosynthesis, you have got the ability to make more biogas and at a lower cost. So obviously the Pacific Islands is a good place for that to happen.
Okay, that's fantastic, and this gives us something to think about as to what perhaps we can do in CCL to help promote this wonderful technology. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, Ken. I'd like everybody to round of applause.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity, and if I can support any conversations you're having with politicians or anybody else, I'm more than happy to do that.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, now I haven't heard from others here. If anybody wanted to make any last comment before we close off this afternoon, I'm just unmuting everyone so that we've all got a chance.
Yeah.
All good. One thing I should say.
Yeah, that's right.
Perhaps we won't unmute those two, they're too noisy. Yes, so just for everybody's sake, the Golden Group here is just doing wonderful stuff. Just on Thursday night, we had 105 people came along to a meeting that Ian and Penny had organised with a key person from the IPCC in Canberra, Mark Howden. Professor Mark Howden gave a wonderful talk, and 105 people came along to our CCL meeting. And yeah, and they've got a barbecue here today, is where I am. Sorry, Wollongong, I should be there with Rowan and Neville. Sorry, guys. This seemed like a much better option. But,
It's cold.
It is cold, I have to say. It was a barbecue indoors, yeah. But anyway, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Ken. You've given us a lot of food for thought, and appreciate everybody input this afternoon. So,
yeah.
Cheerio.
More than happy to do that. And like I said, if you want any further information or help with your discussions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom, and congrats.